What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Above Average Podcast, where we talk to guests that are above average in mindset and action. Today, we have Justin, who owns his own chiropractic business and somebody that I have gone to now for probably, 7 or 8 months now?
Probably, yeah, sometime in early summer.
Yeah, so it was, I think it's a really interesting topic for people to learn about because there's a lot of people that have misconceptions about it, and there's a lot of things that I see on the internet that are almost damn near scary with chiropractic that I'm like, is that even real? Like, I don't even know. So I think we want to get your take on some of those things as well, like what we've seen that might be like totally BS visual marketing versus like real, actual, tangible stuff.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that goes on. I mean, they're just looking for the most erratic thing that you'll see. And even some of the greatest videos are from the ones that are like overseas. I don't know if you've ever seen people from like India that like pull the person with the back and then over their knee and like the whole body just cracks back. And you see those ones. You don't learn any of that in school.
I've seen the one where they put the thing on the back of their spine.
Oh, the hammer one?
Smack it with a hammer?
Like, yeah, I don't really even know where people learn that. Like you have to dig deep to find something that crazy.
Yeah.
But they don't teach that in school.
That's got to be some old world stuff right there.
Or new world stuff. I don't even know. I mean, yeah, stone, chisel, things like that. Hammer it back in place. I can kind of see the primitive idea of it, but
dude, I've like re-racked the bar on the back of my and I've hit the top of my spine. And that makes me feel like I'm going to just crinkle. Like, I don't know how, like, someone's smacking a hammer into the back.
No, I don't. Like I said,
it hurts so bad.
It doesn't seem like it's very beneficial to anybody. It's like, oh, that kind of hurts. And yeah, it felt better later, didn't it? Yeah, because it really hurt at the moment.
Right.
And anything's going to feel better after that.
A 10 is going to become less than that eventually.
Correct. Yes. Hey, it's a little bit better. That's all that really matters. I'll see you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and then that's how that gets you.
Right? That's it. And that's the old mantra of it. And I still probably teach that in school. I mean, they did that stuff when I was in school as well. But when I started my own practice, it was a lot different. That's the one thing I learned from working for two other people before starting mine was what are the bad things that they're doing that people absolutely don't like, and what are the good things? And you take that and you combine all that stuff with pretty much what you want to do as a chiropractor. And then you can create this sort of business model where for me, it was short-term care, 6 to 8 visits, a few weeks here and there, reevaluate people, see how they're doing. Pretty much not over-treating people. And I don't sell anything. I don't sell supplements. I don't sell any sort of toys or any fancy, shiny new things. Most of it's everything with our hands. And I have a physical therapist. I got another chiropractor, massage therapy. As Ethan knows, he's done the massage as well, too. Nice. So it kind of works out that way where some practices do like this maintenance type of care, but that's a different type of practice. If you see family at the end of the chiropractic, then that's probably what they're doing for you. But
with the massage, I mean, I've gotten like a couple different massages in my life, and I've always felt like with massage specifically that I need someone to like beat my ass, like it needs to be deep. Like I need to feel like I'm coming out of it, and like it was a battle because I want like. You know, because I mean, you can do myofascial release with a foam roller and stuff like that, and like I feel like I can. You know, I used to use a PVC pipe in college, and I'm like that hurts pretty bad. And so if I'm going to somebody that's gonna like manually do it, like I feel like it's got to be deep. And I don't even know if I'm right saying that, but I don't know. Like, is that like your experience? I mean, is it meant to be something that's like kind of lighter, or is there an aspect to it where it's like you're getting?
Well, I guess it depends on what you're trying to seek from it. Yeah. I hate that stuff. I hate deep tissue massage. I got one the one time from Massage Envy, and I was like crying in the table because it hurt so bad. They're putting it. I mean, you might feel better at the end of it, but it's one of those things like, wow, I feel better than I did 10 minutes ago when I was crying in a face paper. Like, but if you have injuries. Sore muscles from probably working out, things like that. They might go a little bit deeper, but I don't like it. I like to just Swedish massage. I want to just lay there, just nice and rub me down.
Yeah,
just chill out. And
I've had both, and Catherine at your place.
Yeah,
shout out to her.
Yes,
she crushes me sometimes because I'll say
I don't like it. Just like rub me down.
Right. I had like really, tight like IT band issues and like hips from like running a lot. And she's also, thankfully, I just find this helpful that she's also like running a lot right now. So I'm like, hey, like, my pain, and she gets it. But oh my God, there's times where I'm like quite literally almost in tears, but it does help my mobility. And it just tells me, I think I need to like stretch more and do like other preventative things like strength wise, because like I can't just rely on that.
Yeah, because you're making muscles chronically tight especially if you're doing like a lot of running, right? So
Yeah.
you're repetitively doing this over and over and over again. Those muscles are going to harden up, and then breaking it down like that will feel much better. You'll feel soft as a baby, like a tenderizing meat.
Yeah.
But if you're just somebody that sits at a desk all day and have a sore neck and sore back, like you might not necessarily need deep tissue.
Sure.
It's not gonna really benefit you. Sometimes it makes it worse. Sometimes you loosen up things that are not meant to be loosened up, and they were stabilized there for a moment and for a reason. And if you loosen that up, it can cause more movement, and that more movement can then lead to a pain here, or refers here. So it's not uncommon for people to get massages and say, I felt worse the next day as well too. So I think it is tailored specifically to the person, but really what you're looking to get out of it and what you do throughout the day, that's the cause for what you like the Thai massages where they walk on your back and stuff like that, and they'll even adjust you or do all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, it'll feel good for a moment. It's never going to fix anything, that's for sure. It's if you're having some sort of pain from something, just massaging it out most of the time isn't going to fix if you've had a long standing, more than 6 days or 2 weeks. It's considered more like chronic after about 3 months, but most people have these issues for years.
Long time.
Yes.
We good over there?
I was checking to make sure that light was on. Okay. I just had to triple check. I'm like super OCD about this because I have yet to mess it up, but we've been close.
I'm glad he is, because I also don't really know what's going on. So I mean, I know the red light needs to be on, but I mean,
that's usually a good sign.
Yeah.
Right? Well,
Are you? I mean, you're familiar with David Goggins, I would assume. Everyone knows who he is. Have you read his book by chance?
I have not. I haven't read a real book since I was in high school.
Okay, well, you should listen to that.
I
His
listen to a
audio
lot,
book
a
apparently
ton.
is incredible. I read the book myself, but at the end, he talks about how, I mean, he's done all that he's done. Like, I mean, he's literally beat the hell out of himself for his entire life. And he's talking about how he had a knot in the back of his neck and he never stretched. Like, he was running ultras and never stretching.
Yeah.
And then, like, the one chapter was about, he said he, like, at one point was in bed, woke up one morning and felt like he was going to die. Like, he was like, I was like, he thought it was it. And he started stretching. And it like brought him back to life. Like, I mean, a knot on the back of your neck like that, I was like, I've never heard about that ever in my life. And I mean, I don't know. This is an extreme person. So
yeah, well, he's definitely extreme, but no more extreme than somebody that sits in a shitty posture for 8 hours a day.
Sure.
That's a pretty extreme amount
That's
of
your
time,
whole
right?
life, yeah.
Hold like a bowling ball out here for 8 hours for the next day. That's extreme, but it's not really. The action is not extreme, but the positioning, something has to hold up all of the weight.
Yeah.
So when he's talking about that in the back of the neck as well too, he might have been running with his head forward. And so these muscles in the back of his neck have to constantly develop.
now that you say that, I've watched him run and he definitely does.
So,
run
and that's
his head
not
forward.
uncommon for people. They'll run their shoulders like up like this, and they'll kind of run in like this, and then this gets all tight. It pulls up into the back of the head, pulls you into this forward head posture. Your suboccipitals can get very tight, and he's doing it 100 miles,
Can that mess
every day.
with your eyesight?
The occipital lobe is back in this area as well too, so you really don't get hit in the back of the head. I don't know.
I only asked that. So I
haven't come across it.
Yeah,
If that's
I have some experience with. I went to a chiropractor for a long time when I was like 18 through 23, and it started because when I was in high school, I played soccer. I was a goalkeeper. I tore my quad my senior year, just from kicking in our season opener. Like I went to the field a couple days prior and we were kicking field goals, and my leg felt like dull, like when I would swing my leg. And then I thought nothing of it. I was like, that's a weird feeling I've never felt before. And then the next day we went to our home opener, and it's like my senior year. I'm like, it was our rival. Like, I'm all in.
yeah.
I hit like 30 goal kicks. So we're talking like a 50, 60 yard ball 30 times a game, which is a lot. And over time, that pain just got gradually worse every time I swung through the ball. And then to the point where like the end minutes of those games, I was hitting goal kicks and I'm like screaming in pain. And then I went and get an MRI. They're like, your quad is torn. So go to an ortho. You can't have surgery because it's a quad tear. So it's just like, you have 12 weeks of just letting it heal. And I would lay on my stomach. Like, I'd go to practice and I would feel like my right leg, like the swelling, like it would just feel like elevated. So then I go back early and they had me do this test where I would jump on one leg. Like, it was like a single leg broad jump.
Yeah.
And I could do that. And they were like, you're cleared. So then I go back early. I hit one like half volley, like long ball. And I felt what had to be scar tissue just open up again. And then that was it for me. So I was done. And so all the while this is happening, I played for a club team. There was a kid on my team that went to this chiropractor in Monroeville. She was a chiropractic neurologist. Like, that was the way she described herself. And they were doing some different things with his hamstrings. And so I went, and so she tells me that my iliopsoas was so tight and it was contracted. Like, so she had me lay on the table, and then she would, like, I guess it was pressure points, like in my hip, my groin, and then on my quad, press those. And I'm nearly like falling off the table. It hurt so bad. And so the whole thing was your psoas is so contracted that it put all the weight on my quad for when I was kicking. And I said, I was like, well, okay, I can still squat though. And they're like, well, there's no velocity happening. That was the explanation. It was like there's a lot more velocity taking place when you're kicking a ball versus when you're squatting. So did a lot of treatment with like a deep heat laser over that area, and then some adjustments here and there with my hips to make sure they were in line. And then from there I was good. Like I haven't had an issue since. And so then at the time I'm like, oh, this is the thing. I need to keep going to this chiropractor. And it wasn't like a thing where it was like you said, like it wasn't maintenance. Like I wasn't like I went when I felt like I needed to.
Yeah.
And in that sense, haven't had an issue since. Now, this specific chiropractor that I was seeing definitely went outside of chiropractics here and there. Like I was told like I had adrenal fatigue at one time.
Yes.
Like those different types of things. Like there were supplements involved. And again, I think those things maybe weren't as like, I don't think that was the place where I should have been getting that stuff from, but the chiropractics was helpful.
Yes, the aspect of it was the musculoskeletal stuff.
Yes.
Not the adrenals or like your organs or anything like that. Correct.
And so then later, this lady, she sold her practice, another chiropractor took it over, and so I continued to go. And the person that took it over was a former soccer player, and I would go back just for different things. Like I had quad tendonitis it was quad tendonitis in my left knee. And this person was very like anti like lifting, like would tell me like, hey, you're gonna have to stop lifting at some point, like that's gonna be bad for you. And I'm like, really? Like, are you serious? Would look at my traps and like, your traps are overdeveloped and like that's gonna become a problem. And I'm like, dude, just like this is my lifestyle. This is what I do. Just tell me what I need to do to keep doing this stuff. And the final straw was talking about my knees. And he was like, you don't have any cartilage left in those knees. And I was like, based on what? And he's like, well, you played soccer all your life. That cartilage is going to be damaged. And I'm like, that just seems like a crazy thing to say without imaging, Yeah.
It's a broad assumption.
Right. And so then I go, finally, I'm like, okay, well, this type of treatment is not working for this tendonitis. So then I go get an MRI. They call me with the results of the MRI. They're like, your knees are completely unremarkable. It looks like you never played sports.
Yeah.
Cartilage is fine. Like you have tendonitis, but your knees are fine, like structurally. And I was like, okay, great. So I'm not going to go back there anymore because
that's overstep.
Yeah.
I never assumed so much like that.
Right.
Really MRIs or, how can I tell you? And I never tell anybody this is exactly what you have or what's my diagnosis. Okay, here's what I believe is happening to you. And I'll show them, this is what's happening. This is why it's happening. And maybe these are some contributing factors that maybe you're doing or your lifestyle that may be causing this. Mm-hmm. But every body is different. Look at everybody's structure is different. And a lot of the postures do change. They do change for the good, and they can always change back. And it a lot of times has to do with the things that you're doing most throughout the day. So if you're doing something 6-8 hours a day, whether it's laying bricks or whether it's sitting on a couch playing video games, or up walking around a lot, your body will start to change to that to adapt. It's ever adapting.
Yeah.
You guys work out, right? Your body adapts and then it doesn't whenever you stop using it. So no matter what your new thing is, that's what's going to show your body. You adapt your new diet, your body's going to show it. You start working out, it's going to show. You take both of those away and go back to what you're new for, you'll quickly go back to where you were just at. And,
I wonder about like these like streamers, dude. Like these people that are streaming video games for 12 hours a day. Like they've got to have some kind of like.
Did you see the guy that he was wearing one of these and it was in his head? No, his head had like an imprint of it like molded his skull or like his skull changed. It conformed to, he had this line that went on the top of his head like permanently.
Dude, I mean,
from wearing this 10, 12 hours a day.
Probably growing up doing it, I would guess too, right? Like there had to be maybe like a developmental time too?
No.
Really?
No. Your body is ever changing. I mean, your skull, I believe, and I don't know that. I think your skull still grows. Like I think it's still constant. That's why people's heads get like still big when they're older and their facial features like, or somebody on steroids. Like remember Barry Bonds, his head was like it blew up like this. Like his head kept growing, and so his hands kept growing as well too. So you put in something in that position for long periods of time, it will eventually relax to it, strengthen up to it, it'll change to it, it'll mold to it.
We
It'll be
all
like
have that
very
in
pliable.
Our fingers now, right? Like the pinky finger is where we hold our phone at the bottom. Like everyone
Probably.
has
Well,
that.
I mean, these have seen a lot of days
I've
too.
seen that. Like I've seen that like on the, I don't know where it was on the news or something, but like people are getting a deformity here, and I have it. There's like a ditch right there because that's how I hold my phone. And like if
your body's
look at
ever changing. My
finger-
thumbs, I have arthritis on the inside. I sit there and I rub or I pin and stretch. Like I've been doing it for over 10 years now, and I can. These are huge. Like this is not. It's developmental.
It's got to be like
arthritis is in that area.
so much in the neck from looking at phones too. And like I can tell that I do this a lot, but like not nearly as much as some people. But like I am on a desk, so like I don't sit perfectly like this.
Yeah, I'm
like
sitting
I just
here thinking,
can't.
I'll pull my shoulders back right now. Yeah, talking about this. Like,
Yeah, it's tough, man. I don't know how people do it. I sit now that I've hired these other doctors to help me out more than I have before, and I experience back discomfort. My back's not trained to sit for long periods of time, and then just posture-wise, I'm constantly aware. I've tried every chair than imaginable to figure out, what are the best ones to recommend to my patients and so forth like that. But you're just ever changing. People, it's constantly phases of your life, and you got to get in the right one.
do you find that you're just always aware of that, like positional posture that you should be in?
Every day, I talk about it every day.
Physical
It's
therapists, every time I've been to a physical therapist's office, I watch them like they're sitting on a stool with no back and they're sitting straight up.
That's
Always.
it's every day. I mean, I talk it. I try to live it too. If I ever do get any sort of pain, I'm doing what's in our clinic. I'm trialing everything. But yeah, I live. What I preach is what I do.
Yeah.
So it's
I like your approach because like he's had some experiences, good and bad, with a chiropractor. I had one where like beforehand it was very just cut and dry. Like, someone just did the exact same thing for me as they would have with anybody without a lot of analysis, which was fine. But then I was kind of like, I started thinking, I was like, well, how do I get better then if you're not like really guiding me with much? And that's where like you've been very helpful to like make me do PT on certain things. And then I've learned it and I do it at home. And I notice when I get worse, it's mostly because it's on me. Like at that point, it's like, I stopped doing it for a week. I was gone. I was really stressed out, and I should have been doing, the things up against the wall, and stuff like that.
correct. There are some extra, like you have to counteract what you're doing, like especially sitting. I can't talk about sitting enough. That how it's wrecking people. Most of my practice is 18 to maybe 40. Probably say 90% of it is that, and they all have very similar issues: neck pain, back pain, headaches, and 90% of them sit. They're either students.
I've seen that you've had a ton of students.
It's all they're coding. They're sitting at a computer. They help. When I was 18 to 22 years old, I didn't have any neck pain or back pain. Like I don't remember having that. I know my friends never had that. Like these kids are coming in waves, and because they spend 12 hours a day. They're working till like I'll get things on my website, my leads. They'll be like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I have neck pain. Wow. I'm like, these are students. I'm like, what are you still doing up? And they're just coding all night, just rapidly, sitting in like weird positions or like, there's it's just bad. And they have pain now. And I'm like, what do you imagine 20 years from now? You have a desk job. Like, how can you survive?
I like see it because like I work in the School of Computer Science, and I'm the marketer for the master's program, and these kids are, this is an exceptionally hard program, and the professors like give zero mercy on it. I mean, like it really is like most kids work on this 12 hours a day. There really is not an option. None of them have jobs. Like you quit your job to do this, and then you do this for 12 hours a day. And that is like the standard for that. Like there's no difference.
And they're very competitive. Everything they do, like they are. I'm not in that world, so I don't understand how that works. But I mean, I see the competition between all these kids. Like, how many jobs are they competing for? Like, what happens to the rest of these people that are spending, 80 hours a week?
Right.
Yeah.
Applying for, there's 2,000 people applying for something where there's maybe 10 jobs. I'm like, what does the other 900?
Well, and like, like for those kids coming from like just understanding their background now, like I just was on a work trip with them, and like they are exceptionally smart, not in every facet, obviously, right? But the thing that like they're looking for is anything but the school to stand out, to help. So they were like, how do you talk to people so well? Like they were asking me that, which means like other things too, were like, they'll do it like up till the last extent until like something hurts or until like they need anything to make them better. And they'll do it at that point because they've just spent so much time and energy. Yeah. So I'm not surprised that based on the labor of what they have to do on a computer is like 12 hours a day. It's like a real thing.
It gets to them. It gets to the point where they call me, and that's when I know it's okay. Or they're self-aware.
They're just like
I
desperate.
can't. They're like, I can't continue this. I'm like, how long have you had it? Months, and it's not getting better. It's slowly getting worse. Well, something's causing that, and it's just not gonna miraculously just get better one day.
Yeah.
If it's caused by the situations or the positions that you put yourself in. So
Yeah.
and even working out, like people, I work out an hour. I'm like, oh, great, but you're sitting 8.
Yeah.
So you're working out 45 minutes and you're sitting for 8 hours. You're helping, but it's like if you work out before and then you go sit all day, then you're going to end in this tightened up position, or like when you're
Right.
It's
So you got to go like break up the time from being stuck in that position. Like that's what I've noticed that helps me.
yeah,
So I do like the PT stuff like in the middle of the day sometimes.
yeah,
Like I'll either do it in the morning or in the day, and then it gets me like a reset, to like feel better and then sit and go back into work. You know what I mean?
yeah. My best advice is break it up however you can. Like sitting, just breaking it up as much as if you're gonna do, like say push-ups. Like if you want to do 100 push-ups a day, you don't have to do all 100 of them in a row or at a certain time frame.
Yeah.
Do 25 of them when you wake up, do 25 of them at lunch.
Yeah.
25 before dinner, and then 25 before bed, and then, but you're doing them throughout the day. You're constantly varying what it's doing. Like I said, those stagnant positions that you get into for long periods of time is your body is adapting to it.
Yeah.
It's changing.
Well, that's kind of like CrossFit, like it's constantly varied. Like that's kind of the whole idea is, all these other sports, you talk about any sport, you talk about hyper specialization with kids in sports now with like they're doubling down on one sport at the years where they're growing. And then you get kids that are 15 with overuse injuries, which like did not happen when we were growing up because we were playing 4 sports at the same time where you were like not
throwing a
digging
baseball.
those ruts. Yeah. And like, that's the idea behind CrossFit really is like you're not always doing the same thing and hammering away at the same stuff.
Now it is.
Yeah.
It wasn't always like that.
Yeah. It's definitely, it's changed
When
a lot.
I was in CrossFit for a while and in the beginning of it. And, but you would see everybody in CrossFit was like this. Because everything was like pulling, and then they were doing back and they were push pressing, but they were never doing any accessory work.
Yeah.
Or like the stabilizing of the back of the shoulder.
Matters so
and then
much.
they came up with that crossover symmetry because everybody was getting hurt. That's literally how I started my practice, was from the amount of people that were getting injured at CrossFit.
Okay.
I was doing it.
Really?
I swear, yeah, I was doing it, and everybody was like, I need worked on. This hurts. And I'm like, oh my gosh, all these people, look at them. They're like, internal rotation of the shoulders, they're all having labral issues. I'm like, oh, this is great. Let me just open up a practice down the road and start seeing these people. And that's what I did. I went to CrossFit, saw all the injuries. I'm like, here it is. This is what we need, is somebody to fix this.
That's crazy, man. Because that's always been the thing with CrossFit. It's like, oh, you're gonna get injured. You're gonna get injured. Like even like we had Tanner on, and he was like, dude, you get hurt doing that. And like, Tanner doesn't do CrossFit, but like, that's just what people know it as.
Yeah.
You do. It's because you're going to failure, and the competitiveness. It was great. I'm not gonna lie. Like you'll get in really good shape.
Yeah.
And it's advanced a lot. I'm assuming now. I haven't done it in 5, 6 more years, maybe 7 years. But I'm sure it's advanced a lot more, and they've fixed all of the issues that they had.
It's the programming. The programming matters so much.
Absolutely.
And I think where I go, where Ethan used to go, or was going, and then taking some time off. But like, I feel the fittest I think I've ever felt in my life. And played Division I soccer for 4 years, and I feel good. Like, I have occasionally, I get front of my shoulder hurts sometimes, but
we all have pain.
Nothing that's like keeping me out of the game.
I was the most fit doing it too. I did it to compete in the tactical games as a test run. Like, all right, I'll do this 4 months, having pretty good lifting in general, and then just trying stuff that I'm like, okay, I have to try this for like 2 months to get a measure, and then do another 2 months of improvement. And like, I didn't get hurt. I've had the least amount of back pain, probably the combination of going to you and then going to CrossFit at the same time. Was actually really helpful because I found the small things to fix, and then I actually got stronger than when I went to the tactical games. That's 7 events in a weekend. I left there not being sore the next day, which is insane.
That's insane. Yeah, that's your body's well prepared.
Yep.
You're not breaking anything down. It's able to handle all that, and that feels great, doesn't it?
Oh my God, it was incredible. I was like, because like the first time I did the tactical games, it was like I was prepared, but not like I should have been. And I was so wrecked for like a week. Like I was just overly sore in some areas. I'm like, damn, I'm so glad I didn't hurt my back. You know what I mean? Like, but But this time, I was like, I went to the gym the next day. I was like, oh, we're still good.
You got to be
Throwing
prepared.
good
There's
weight,
nothing feels better than being prepared and then an opportunity arising and you're prepared for it. And I mean, that's in life. That's just in general. Like people think it's lucky. And there's all that quote, oh, it's just luck meets preparation. But it really, when you are fully prepared for something and then you can go at it at 100% and you feel great when you're doing it, there's no better feeling than know that you just crushed something.
It's like 99% preparation.
Yes.
And then when the 1% luck hits, it's like, oh, thank God.
It's like, well, I was in that opportunity. I was ready at that moment when it happened. And it can go in any of the CrossFit competitions or like running half marathons. Like I think I told you at one point, I did about 6 of them. And then I got to the point where I sprinted my last one, like as fast as I could for the full 13 some miles.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm done. That's it. I can't go any farther. Like I felt great after it. I was good. I could have kept running. And I'm like, it felt really good to be able to sprint like that, but I was fully prepared for it. And out of all of them, that was my favorite one. But at the end of it, I quit because I was like, I can't really go any faster.
How quick was it?
It was
like through your averages?
An hour and 30 and like 20 seconds. So
Okay,
I just missed not getting out an hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you were cruising.
I was cruising, man. And I
Was
got
that like
little legs.
7:30?
Dude. It was like, I think it was a 6 something pace.
Oh, shit.
6:45.
Is that
maybe
actually
something
sub
like that,
7?
or maybe sub 7. I don't know. I don't do the math. I don't remember. It was probably in 2014, 15.
I just did a 10 miler and I finished it in an hour and 37. So yeah.
Yeah, it's
that's faster
booking.
than
I mean,
that,
like
for sure.
I was able to and this was in Florida when I did it, and when I lived in Florida, it's just flat. Everything's flat. I had a beach and stuff like that. But I remember I would get up and I could sprint 6 miles, like just straight up sprint 6 miles, and I would maybe not even sweat when I was done.
Wow.
Like, but I was not out of breath or anything. But I would just pick up. I would sprint like a mile, and then I would jog and run the rest of it. And then I'd sprint 2 miles, and then. But man, when I got to the point where I could just sprint 5 to 6 miles.
Odds you can do that now.
Do what? 5 to 6 miles?
Sprint.
Or just sprint? I can sprint. Definitely not 5 to 6 miles. I couldn't even run 5 to 6 miles. I hate that. Man, I hate running.
And your heart rate had to be efficient.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Oh, so that's what I mean. That's when you feel. That's when you're prepared and you feel great. Like when you're doing
It's like
it,
your resting heart rate's like 12.
You're just like, you're just like, oh, I just played around for a little bit. And when you're having fun, then that's fun.
Yeah.
Not when you're like breathing out of your mouth and like trying to catch the stitches that you're forming in both of your underneath your rib cages on both sides.
I'm like a third of the way of like the marathon prep, and like last 2 runs were like good. Like I ran from Mount Washington to downtown and back.
Yeah.
All downhill, all uphill. And I got back and I was like, that wasn't that bad. I checked my heart rate. It was like still under 160. I'm like, oh, wow.
No, that's
finally getting to a good spot where I'm like, all right, running isn't like killing me.
And that's when you're getting that running high. That's when you get that.
I have
those
yet to
endorphins,
have one.
man.
The elusive runner's
Start
high.
sprinting.
Really?
Sprint, man. I'm telling you, once you can get efficient in sprint, that's when you're gonna hit that serotonin release.
I just started doing speed work on the less distance days. So like on the 3 mile days, like the last one I did like a mile and a half as fast as I could, and then take a little break, and then do another same distance back and see if I can keep the same time. And I was like at a 7-minute mile. It's great. Felt great about it. But the long runs I'm doing deliberately so slow still. Like I'm just making sure I don't like overuse.
Just a time under tension type of thing. You're just getting that endurance.
I'm doing like a 9:30, 10.
Control the heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
There is something to the sprinting thing though, because I mean the runner's high is so elusive. But when I was in college, we used to do these things called performance runs, where we were on the soccer field and we would make a diamond like from the 18 to the half, and it was this big diamond. And the idea was we'd have different intervals, but it'd be like you do 45 seconds as hard as you can around this diamond and just get where you can get, and then you rest for 45. It was always a 1-to-1. And we would do those at 60, 90 seconds. And after we did them the one time, I sat down on the bench and I was just like, dude, I'm faded. Like someone came over to me like, dude, are you good? And I was like, my eyes are half shut. And I felt amazing. And that's the only time it's happened. But that was from like hauling ass around.
Yeah, you're pushing yourself past a peak. Yeah. Like into another dimension almost. And that's...
And the thing about that thing, which was so crazy, is because like, so I was a goalkeeper, and like the other outfield players wore the GPS, like the catapults. So they have the chip on the back of their neck. And for those guys, like they couldn't hide because over time they're getting like a data point of
reading,
what their high, like what their max output is. And so then I didn't have to wear one of those, so I could kind of just like, you know, game it to where I'm like, they're not going to see my results. And now the goalkeepers do wear that stuff, so it's different, but guys would get called into the office after we would do these runs, and they'd be like, "Hey, we looked at your data. Like, why were you dogging this?" I'm like, "Damn, dude! Like, you throw that thing on, like you're not safe. Like, big brother's watching."
Then that's the motivation factor right there. Then you know somebody's always watching you.
Yeah, you gotta put out there. But I want to go back to talking about physical therapy.
Yes.
I noticed I went to physical therapy. I had shin splints really bad my senior year of high school, and this specific PT that I went to, it was like they just hit me with the, we're gonna do ice and stim, and then the ultrasound, and then like the exercises were like very
cookie cut. They call it cookie cutter.
Exactly.
Right? It's on a sheet and they give it to people.
Yeah, and like, I mean, I don't know. I guess I came back from that, I was fine, but then I actually ended up going to that chiropractor, and then I got inserts in my shoes, and then that fixed the shin splints. And then years later, for that quad tendonitis, I went to Cool Springs in Bethel Park, and it was an AHN PT, and it was a completely night and day experience where it was like there was no passive like recovery involved at all. It was I was doing exercises the entire time.
Yeah, all active, no passive modalities.
It was hard as hell. Yeah, I mean, I'm like struggling through this stuff, like single leg squats to a bench, like hold it for 20 seconds on the way down. Doing all the hip stabilizer work. Like, it was tough, but it fixed it. And I think there's still people that have the idea that physical therapy is meant to be this passive process where you're just like, okay, I'm going to go sit on this table and they're just going to hook me up and then I'm going to feel better, which is like, that's not how it goes. Like, you've got to move through these patterns to then fix yourself.
Correct. Yeah. That's our physical therapist doesn't do any passive stuff. Mm-hmm. He's hired. He's part of his responsibility in our team is to the active rehab, fine-tuned to each individual person. It's one-on-one with him. You'll see 2 people an hour at the most, and so it's you and maybe somebody else that you're switching here and out, but it's all custom to him. I tried to get him to use these sheets like I would do, and that's what the difference between a business and a private practice. So you went to, the first place was a business. Some guy owned it. He had 5 or 6 minions there, or they call them grunts, that will have to follow this specific plan that is designed from whatever the science or whatever they want to throw at you at this point, or whatever they're believing in. But then you go to like a private place like mine where it's individualized. So we have, like on the chiro side, I have the sheets. I was seeing way too many people and I couldn't deliver the physical therapy that I wanted to. So I was always doing the physical therapy as a chiropractor. So chiropractors can do physical therapy, which is any sort of exercise, massage type techniques. But I couldn't do it to the level that I wanted to because it was just me, and I had some little minions from Pitt, the exercise science kids, come and work for me. I had hired some rehab tech guys. But the physical therapy portion of it is all hard exercises. Like when I thought I knew physical therapy before I hired a physical therapist, I was like, my book now looks like a pamphlet, and his is like the Bible as far as things to know. So we brought him in to just strictly do that. He doesn't do any rub you down. He doesn't do any stim. He doesn't do, if you want to do that, you'll come over to the chiro side. We will adjust you, break down soft tissue with some massage type techniques. We don't just put people on stim unless you're barely walking in. Like at that point in time, you probably shouldn't really be coming in, because if you really can't do anything on your own, like what are you expecting somebody like me to be doing? Sure. That's not just going to make it worse or irritated at some point in time.
What are your thoughts on cupping?
It's a form of massage. It promotes blood flowing into the area. It does what it needs to do. It's clear. It looks like you can see it. You can see the broken collaborators, that you're drawing blood into there, which is going to heal all the tissues. So anything that you can get the body to focus in on that's ultimately what's going to heal you. Yeah, that is it. Like
did you see my back maybe a week or two ago?
Yeah, I remember. I think you posted something where I noticed you had the
yeah. Like I had all of the back parts cupped from going there, and dude, the weirdest thing with cupping the first time, and this was so bizarre, and that's how I knew that it was actually probably help in some areas, was like it like drained my sinuses. Like I got off the table and I got up and I went home, and I'm like, it's like I could feel sinus pressure leaving because she'd put it up high like in my neck.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I'm like, there's so much compression like around here that it actually alleviated things that I was not realizing about, like headaches and like specifically like drainage coming from like being so
tightness.
Tight. It's very weird.
Pinch off any of those cranial nerve areas. There.
So strange.
Yeah. Headaches, one of the big things we get with chiropractic, that goes away sometimes immediately whenever you work on the upper part of the neck or you massage the upper part of the neck. because people get in that tight position. So it tightens up and it pinches off the nerves going to the head, and people get this tension like headache. And then once you relax that, it opens it up, and then it's like a floodgate. Everything just kind of moves. With sinuses, that's a common thing. People get adjusted. They're like, it just drains my sinuses.
That's great.
And it's freeing up, you're gapping the joints. Basically, you're just making sure everything moves. That's what we use it as a tool to make sure all the segments are moving properly or to their full potential before we do any form of movement with it. Otherwise, my thing is, why would I be teaching you some movement when there might be some sort of restriction there that's going to prevent you from doing it properly? And if I'm going to teach you how to do it, I want you to do it properly. So we breaking it down and rebuilding it is, it's an integral part to break it down. So make sure everything's moving.
It's interesting with at Pitt, we had our trainers like had the tools to do cupping. And in the beginning, when they first started doing it, it was a passive thing where you're just laying on the table, they stick them on you, and then you just sit there.
Yeah.
And then eventually they were like, we're not doing this anymore. If you're getting cupped, it's like an active thing. Like you were moving through positions while you have the cups on you. And that was a different story because that hurt. I mean, I would get them on my back, and then I'm doing like cat cows on a table. And like that was like painful. Like you got these things stuck on you, and now you're moving through positions. And the idea with that was it would increase your mobility, which it absolutely did. I mean, there were guys that were coming in getting it on like their Achilles tendon, and they would like go through just like that, what would it be, dorsiflexion, I guess, or whatever. I mean, moving your big toe to your knee.
Dorsiflexion.
Yeah. So I mean, and then they would come out of it, and their ankle mobility would improve. And it's temporary. Like obviously, right after you feel that relief and you feel that additional mobility, and you got to keep doing it.
Correct.
But it was crazy to see the development in it being from a passive thing to now being completely active, and like almost the purpose behind it changed.
Correct. It's like active release technique. That's what you'll hear, like ART or MRT, myofascial release technique. They're basically that same thing, actively moving that muscle or that joint through that range of motion while you add some sort of pressure to the muscle to inhibit it or to get it to relax so that you can fully motion it. Whether it's pressing on the tendon at the end where the Golgi tendons are, which is stretch reflex, or just in the muscle belly itself, just to get it to fully just relax. Like you push on your muscle belly, eventually it will just relax because it hurts so bad, and then you can move that arm through it. I think they have that I don't even know what it's called, but they put that rubber stuff around your arm. Did you ever see that stuff? Voodoo floss or whatever. Like they're constricting or restricting blood flow.
I just got some of that actually.
I think the active portion is important for a lot of things that you do. Anything passive is never going to fix what you're doing.
I have another thing. Now, something you just said. Are you familiar with PRT? It's a primal release technique.
No, but it sounds fun.
I'll
do it.
I don't know a lot about it at all. I only know about it in college. One of the other goalkeepers, his brother was a rower at I think it was Northwestern, and his back was all messed up. And he went to a chiropractor that did this primal release technique, and it was something where the way he explained it was this person was like tapping on this guy's forehead.
Yes, I love that.
And he's like having to fight the reaction of wanting to flinch, and that somehow caused relaxation in other areas that wasn't previous. Like he was just like,
that'd probably harden anybody.
I would think so too. Forehead. Yeah. And
just don't blink.
Yeah.
At one point in time, you're like stone cold killer.
Right. And I was like, maybe there sounds like there's something there. But then I went and asked that chiropractor about it, and they were like, we don't really do it, whatever. And I never really heard much about it again, so I wasn't sure.
And I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah. I can only assume that it has to do something with your primal reflexes, or ones where they drop kids back all of a sudden and they wait to see if their arms come up, or when they lay them on their stomach and they're going to pretend like they're flying. It's certain things I don't know what the release technique is. I would imagine it has to do with crying, though, right? It sounds like something primal release. It sounds like some grown man's going to be crying at the end of it. Just primal, deep inside, just left everything out.
I'm gonna look that up now that I said that. You guys go ahead. I just want to see if I'm right about that.
So what's the biggest debunking myth about going to a chiropractor? Because the adjustment side stuff. The only thing that's ever made me just slightly nervous, which I think I told you pretty early, I was I had a decently severe lower back injury, so I didn't want to mess with it because I don't know,
didn't want to make it worse. That's understandable.
Yeah, I didn't know that I had a bulge disc, and I've had that multiple times, and I'm God forbid somebody tried to adjust me with a bulge disc. I don't know what would happen. I don't want to find out because it was so bad. A couple times I couldn't walk, so I had to just literally sit there for a little bit and do the just like a stretch, and like that was
Yeah,
it. You know, it's like super scary though.
But that's why you have tools, like multiple tools. So you don't hit everything with a hammer, right? It's the same thing as
unless you're in India, but
well, unless you're just hammering nails in a conveyor, right? And that's it. But no, you have to have different tools for everything, because a lot of people don't really want people don't like to hear the crack. Some people get eked out by that. Some people just don't like to be touched. Like the weirdest thing is when people come into me and they like, I don't like to be touched. And I'm like, do you know where you're at? Like that's literally, Chiro is hands. Like I'm going to touch you. Like I have to touch you. So there are barriers like that. They're very few and far between, but a lot of people don't want to get like the manual adjust. I'll just say, I just don't want to get my neck cracked. Fair enough. Like, we're not going to crack your neck. I can do other types of tissue work. We can do some traction type techniques. There's other ways. There's like mobilizations, and like even like in the physical therapy, they used to teach people how to do these mobilizing techniques where it's just like you're kind of like pressing on the joint, keep pressing and pressing. Eventually it's going to start to loosen itself up the more you press on it. So there's other ways to do it. But you never just like, if somebody that don't crack my neck, you have to, I need to crack your neck. Like,
well, it's like, I think it's kind of person dependent. Like if you're like an athlete like us, I would assume you're probably the same way. Like you really like you're pretty dialed into when something feels weird.
Yeah,
it's like
over time.
I knew like pretty quickly. I was like like through here I'm like, I guarantee like it's got to be something with like pulling my neck straighter, and like I just knew that, and I don't even know how I knew.
You'll feel intuition, man. It's your intuition, and follow that your whole life.
Yeah, I was like, I need to do inversions, tables or something. And I'm like, I just knew it was like that. Like I knew it was almost that specific. And I think it comes from like knowing your body. And I think some people might come to you and don't. And I think that's got to be a tricky part.
Right, like you use your body, you work out, whatever.
I know when something feels weird.
You know, different movements, like you do feel it. And if you're not using it, there's a lot of people that don't use their body at all.
Yeah.
And they aren't aware of it. They're like, they don't have to feel it. It's like, I thought everybody had. They're mistaking common and normal. Like people were like, oh, is it normal for me to have this? I'm like, no, it's common. It's like pain and it's not normal. Yeah. Like I don't have pain. Like you're not born to have pain, but it's very normal because a lot of people are sedentary, or people don't exercise, or people eat like crap. And so they just got to get their headspace wrapped around the fact that it's like, or the needs and wants, those two words, they get mixed up and then they cause problems.
Yeah. So I found this here. This is Google's AI overview, but it's PRRT. So it's the primal reflex release technique is a gentle, non-invasive physical therapy treatment that uses light tapping to help relieve pain. The technique aims to normalize the body's primal reflexes, such as the startle and withdrawal reflexes, which are thought to be overstimulated in people experiencing pain. And it says it's based on the idea that overstimulation of the body's primal reflexes can cause pain and keep painful patterns occurring. These reflexes are hardwired into the nervous system and are triggered in an attempt to protect the body when it experiences a painful or startling event. It's been found to be effective in more than 80% of patients.
Up until that last sentence. I mean, I probably agree with all of it. I don't know that the 80%. I would have to try and do it.
This is just Google.
But it does sound, pain is an emotion. So, and you build neurological pathways to everything that you're doing, including emotional pathways.
Yeah.
And so if you get into the habit of using that pain pathway all day, like it's firing quickly.
Yeah. So that almost gets into the idea of like, they say like you store emotion in the fascia of your muscles.
Who's that?
That's like a yoga thing. That's a yoga thing that I've heard.
I don't know.
I don't know if there's anything to that.
Listen, I'm all for we don't know anything about the body, and like we store things in random places, and like our soul is completely separate from our body. So, but that would be like in the fascia, like storing into like a memory bank of some sort. I mean,
damn, I didn't know that you wanted to get in this. We got to microdose this one or something.
No. This is I've heard that. Like that notion over a few years, and I went to a yoga class with my cousin is a yoga instructor, and she was telling me about they do this thing with it's like a hip opener, specific about hip openers. You'll just hold in these like a frog pose or something for long periods of time. They have like a gong. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but she said that there's people that would like hold these positions and then they would like come out of them crying, because they've like released something that's been buried deep for a long time. And somehow that is connected to like you store emotion in your hips. I have no idea. Like I even said,
so the emotional release is real.
Yeah.
At that 100%. I'm not me having it, but me witnessing it on my table. I've had people who had emotional releases when I'll adjust them, not crying in pain, but like they'll be crying from pain. inside them, like and they'll open up to like, my child, or like I lost my job, or I'm having a really hard day.
Yeah.
Not crying because I'm hurt, but like once you release that, they'll have an emotional release. I've had that multiple times.
Wow.
But it's not from pain. And they always apologize. I'm not crying because I'm in pain. And then they'll go off into the next thing. Like, I had a really rough day yesterday, or the back pain is just killing me. I can't help my kids. I can't do this and do that. And like, I have a weekend, I got to a wedding, and or a fishing trip or golf. I got to do, they'll cry because it releases like this build up, like emotions, like, and eventually at some point you're just going to blow and talk to it. So that the emotional release thing is real. I don't know how or why.
I don't know if anyone knows. Yeah. It just seems there's
but it's
something
back to
there.
that, your mind, body, everything's connected, but we have absolutely no idea really what we're doing. We're just trying to aid the body.
If you've seen it, like I've heard other stories of other professions that are able to release pain that see the same effect, which is like really interesting, which means like you do hold a level of tension somewhere else that's not just in your brain.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, like most people are like this for like a reason when they're at work, tense,
about mentally,
like about shit,
fear and anxiety and catastrophizing things. And that's it. And I mean, rightfully, there's just so much stimulation throughout the day. Like, and there's so much to worry about right now, family, friends, food, shelter, what you're going to do, more importantly, going forward. A lot of people aren't really structured in that. So, and then they have a lot of build up emotions, and you just want to release it. And I'm assuming with the massage, they probably get a lot with those trigger points, because once you get into that, break that pain with another pain, it's just kind of just whatever, let it go.
I just
I'm in so much pain, just let it go.
Yeah, I think I just feel anger towards Catherine every once in a while. When she puts her finger up in my lat, and I'm like, oh my Lord.
Sometimes I love doing that to people.
Oh my God, dude! She just would sit she would sit and just put her finger like up in my lat, and I was like,
it's like, oh, it hurts so good, right? For who, you or me? But I've had it done. I've had, especially when you're talking about it, under the subscapularis. And it's to gain motion and like internal or external rotation. Releasing that is quite painful. It hurts like hell. When you're done, it's objective. You can like, holy cow, I can move it farther now than I was before. So but that also pulls that people in this position here with their hands like this. Their hands are rotated in the pronated position. That subscapularis is adding a little bit of pull into that. And so over time it gets tight, and then you try to stretch it, and you stretch a muscle that has been tight months, years. Shit hurts. It's changing the muscle. It's now changing the fibers of it to become more hardened and more able to assist time under tension instead of just quick bursts. So
some of the things that just like you'd never expect, like for like people with bulging discs or slip discs and like the reverse hyper.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? Like the, where you wrap the thing around your legs and
kickbacks, like double kickback.
Yeah. I did that when I was coaching at Virginia Tech. We would do that a lot. And I was like, I've never done this before in my life. And then I started like looking into it, and I'm like, that comes from like West Side Barbell. Like I'm pretty sure that's where that came from. And like people were legit like fixing slip discs because of that. Because I guess like what you're extending the spine and opening up space for that.
Yeah, well, it's dependent on the type of issue that you have. So there's flexion and extension are typically the two different ways you would treat something with back pain. So the hyperextension is more the McKenzie technique, which prone pressing up, opening up the discs, pumping motion. Basically, you're trying to pump those discs so that they rehydrate them. So they're, I don't know, somewhere 80% water. I'm not 100% sure. It's been a long time since I was in school. But they and there's an inside and an outside, and then the inside you don't want it to come out. But if you compress that front, I mean, it's just like anything else. You can push it, the water is going to start to squirt out. That's when people lose height when they get older. When you get older, you lose like 2 inches, right? You have how many discs? 27, something like that. Don't quote me on this. Like I said, I'm more of a businessman now than I am a chiropractor. But so you lose like a couple millimeters on those. 27 on them. You're going to get it to lose an inch too. Sure. You're 2 inches. And also, people's postures as they get older, they get more hunchy. And so, but there's really the hydration of the disc that you lose that.
Wow.
So, I never even knew that. When you have a disc bulge or hernia, that can also make something extremely worse. Doing that. So if you have a fresh disc herniation and you start to press into the back of that, it'll tell you though. Your body will tell you, don't do this.
That's another interesting thing. I mean, and I feel like as we talk, I'm just thinking of more things that I've experienced in however many years. And in college, I hurt my back lifting like 3 times.
Yeah.
Once was deadlifting. I remember we were going into Thanksgiving break, and I'm just bouncing these deadlifts off the ground. And this is, I was into lifting back then, but not in the sense that I am now. Like, I basically, after all these injuries, I had to go back and just reteach myself how to brace, which I did not know how to do properly. And so then I came back from Thanksgiving break, not realizing of what had happened. And then I got onto the bar, got to the bottom of a squat, maybe relaxed a little bit. And then I came up, and there was just this,
Just
like
enough time.
Just enough. And put the bar back, and I'm like, oh, like you just feel the tightness come into the hips. And then
Guarding.
I was like,
Yep.
I was just
Your body's
like,
guarding an injury.
I was stumbling back to the training room. And that started this whole thing where I went and got an MRI, got an X-ray, and everything was fine. They said I had some fraying in my L5, which they said was normal based on, like, I mean, being a goalkeeper, throwing myself through the air for however many years. And the doctor that I saw that read those results told me that I would have to stick to the Smith machine, and that I would only be able to go up to my current 1 rep max for the rest of my life, which was like 320. And I remember looking at our trainer, who is definitely not of that same thought process. And I was like, dude, what is it, like 1994? Like, how are you telling me that I need to stick to this machine?
Yeah, with a straight face. Like,
I'm like, what year
truly
is
believing
it?
that.
Yeah. And so then I'm glad I didn't listen. But then eventually what they put me on was they're like, your hip stabilizers are just super weak. Like, my abductors were weak. You know, I did a ton of rehab with adduction, abduction, a lot of dead bugs. And I haven't had an issue since. And
using your abs and your glutes, man. Once you figure out the thing to unlock, and I think the key to not having any back pain
is the glutes.
Abs and glutes together, like that, them together, not just one, not just your abs, not just your glutes, like, but using both of them together will put you into a neutralized pelvis, which will stabilize it, and you won't be using your back as much. So the dead bugs, and what I brought it is because you talk about doing dead bugs, and as long as you're doing them right, where you're trying to pin your back down to the ground, which is the most important part of that whole exercise. You see people in the gym firing through dead bugs, like, I'm like, you're not doing it right. Like, you're just strengthening your hip flexors. You're just which is actually pulling you more to an anterior tilt. So you really want to strengthen while lengthening them by pushing that back down and fully extending that leg, like full quality reps when it comes to those. But
like that,
and then bridging with the pelvic tilt or planking with the pelvic tilt, like, those things are going to get you to be using your abs and your glutes together. And if you're doing that, your lifting just feels so much better. Yeah, I can tell you that from personal experience.
The difference is crazy. And that the glutes, 100%. I was never thinking about my glutes when I was squatting. I was always just standing up. But then I noticed, like, when I would consciously think to squeeze my glutes to extend my hips, I was like, wow, all the pressure is gone from my low back.
Yes, and you should not have any pressure in your lower back whenever you're doing that. Lifting. If you're either lifting a little bit too much right now, or your form's not great, and you're putting too much stress on your back. Same thing with deadlifting. Like, you shouldn't have to. Maybe you're going a little too hard. But you should definitely ease yourself into going to that. But
I've heard different people say different things with, and I mean, this is social media where there's like people are always trying to say something that's like maybe controversial or polarizing or whatever. But there are people that will say like, well, a deadlift, like there's people that say you should not feel pain in your low back, but your spine's not made of glass. Like, your erectors are, they still have to work.
Correct. And they're always working.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've had times where I've I've deadlifted and I feel fine, but then I've also, maybe pushed it to the limit, and then like, okay, now my erectors are sore. Maybe there was some movement through that final rep where I did maybe lose some tension, and now my erectors are
and that's
sore
where the issue is. You want to be in that isotonic position. So you want to have it, like, if you just imagine, like, if you were held like a bowling or just like a weight, like a 25-pound dumbbell, but in this, you didn't move your bicep. Like, you just held it in this, you could hold that forever, but you start to go back and forth with that, and that bicep's going to fail. It's going to really soon. That's the same. And that's where not using your lower back comes in. You're still going to be strengthening your back. Don't get me wrong. Like, you have to pick up that weight. Your body's adapting to the weight that you're working with. But if you start to go forward and back with your back, that's a little bit like that little analogy I just showed you. Like, your back is going to hurt. Like, you're doing 20, 30 reps of that. It's 20, 30 curls, or just hold it there for the same amount of time, and you'll be fine to hold it there for the same amount of time without no problem. Yeah. And your biceps will be fine.
That's interesting too with deadlifting. Now that what everyone seems to be saying is, like, for a long time it was like you don't want any rounding in the spine at all. But now it seems like there are people that round their spine, but it stays that level, that degree of rounding.
Correct. They're just not moving. Yeah, and
it's not moving under load. Like, it stays that way
their postures,
the whole time.
They might have an increased thoracic kyphosis. So like they have an increased curve in their back, and just from postures or just anatomically how they are.
Yeah, that's like Lane Norton. You know, Lane Norton. He's a power lifter, and when he deadlifts sumo, and when he stands up, his like chin is tucked to his chest, and like there's people that are like, dude, like don't do that, but he's like pulling 600
do it.
pounds.
Yeah, that's the way he's developed his body to do it. I mean, doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be perfect for you. Yeah, and that's the key to it.
Yeah, I mean, if you can stay tight in that position.
Yeah, it's tight. Stop the excessive motions. If you can stop the excessive motions, you're gonna be far above everybody else, above average.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to be above average, and sometimes it just means like working your buns.
That's it. That's what I want to do.
I had to start like real low when I was coming back from like a back injury, because I paused and braked for like 2-3 months, and I'm like, oh, I guess it's healed. Like I didn't really know like a bulge disc like 6 months plus is pretty average. Especially when I had like 2, like more than 1, and I was like, damn, like I jumped back in, re-hurt it, re-bulged it of some sort, brutal. And then I had to like Google some shit, figure out where can I start, and like I'd start doing the Miguel Big 3 exercises.
Yes,
I still do those all the time. Like it's not like if I'm doing a workout 6 days a week, I feel like I don't really need to. But then when I take those breaks and then I come back in and I'm like, oh yeah, I need to jump back into doing those first. And I do those for like days, and then
correct. And they'll have to work on that stabilizing muscles.
It's
which,
like both.
Like if you mentioned that you had an injury and then you stopped for 2 months and then you wanted to come back into it. Well, your muscles have atrophied in that 2 months.
Right.
Because they're not putting through the stress that would put them in there. They got them injured, obviously, but they're also not where the level you're at. So your mind is there, but your body's not. And that's where most people get into trouble. And especially as you get older, it's like, oh, mentally I could do that. Hell yeah. But physically you might not be able to, because you might have not have done it for...
I've caught that being at
6
my age
weeks,
now.
4 weeks, 6 weeks, anything. 2 weeks, you don't work out, you're going to notice a significant difference in your muscles. Like it's easy to maintain. It's hard to get there. And that's the hardest lesson in life is to don't fall back.
Yeah.
That's how I felt with
back where you need to be.
With like army training and like just being able to jump into running.
Yeah.
Because like when I was like younger in the army, it was like run 10 miles, 5 miles, do it at the pace that, your unit is doing it. No big deal. Never had a problem. I cannot do that quite the same way. But my mind thinks I can't. I just go and start running in the morning, and then I'm like, oh shit, I need to actually like do a warm up now.
And you can do it. You'll finish it, but then that brings you back to the conversation, and then you're sore as hell the next day, and you're like, damn, my body was not ready for that, but I could mentally push through it.
And it's like, that's great and all. I'm 32 at 42. Like that might be that could have been detrimental.
Correct.
And then I'm like, damn, like all the little things, will kind of add up to be able to keep up with that. So,
dude, those are the stories you hear about people that, I know specifically people that this happened to, were like people that played like soccer in high school and they go play in their alumni game and tear their ACL.
That's it. Or their hamstring, or they pull up and the high hamstring.
Because they're like, oh yeah, I used to do this. Like, this is no problem. It's like, you took 10 years off and now you're going to go cut. Like, that's in my mind.
Looks
that's
good, look good, feel good. Let's do it, right? That's
kind of some wild behavior, realistically.
Turkey bowls, people rupturing their ACLs or their Achilles tendon. Like, it's just like I know that because I'm still actively involved in it. Like, I know what could happen, but then there's just people that just don't think about that. They're like, yeah, I used to play soccer. I can go play soccer again. Where
the memories
then,
there.
You were going every day. You were doing it every single day. Like, you have the resilience built up in those tendons, and then you go take 10 years off and then go do it again. Like, what do you think's going to happen?
Your body is not the same. You have changed, and but you're mentally, you have it.
Yeah,
and it's good to have that young mindset, but just it's where you got to watch pushing yourself priorities change when you get older.
I think I've like done more of my workouts at like 75%, and I've still actually physically gotten stronger by doing that. Yeah. Not like maxing everything, because like I used to just like max everything, like not even in weight, but like in reps. And I think like training up for the tactical games, like I did CrossFit, and he can attest, I would push it, but sometimes I chose not to. And you like saw me just being like, yeah, I'm just not gonna do that much weight. I might not feeling like it's actually appropriate. Like, haven't done this in a while, and I still was like pushing the most weight by the end of that cycle, and I never got hurt, and I never had a problem.
You'll get back into it. Shit. Your body will get back into it.
Yeah.
So once you like lose it, you have it, then you lose it. You can get it again real easy.
Yeah.
It's not real easy, but I don't know how or why, but like you just like mentioned, like you after that cycle, like your body will be great. Like you'll improve more. On top of it, I can't tell you the physiological reasons behind that, but other than my like muscle memory and just drive. But lighter weight, I would try to stay unless you're like making money at lifting heavier weights, and then you need to feed kids or yourself.
Yeah,
It was like
It's really not to serve a purpose unless you're doing it all day,
Right.
for something.
like I was like kind of dedicating hitting like a max style of something like only once a week.
Yeah.
And that was good because like it was like the measure. I was like, okay, like specific, like I would practice a specific event for the tactical games or some part of it just once a week where I was like pushing it, and that was even like maxing it was like once a week max. Sometimes I'd wait a week, and then most of the other ones were really good preparation workouts that were all very helpful, but were not like hitting that hard like line. So the hard line would be like very high hit workout or like maybe very heavy weight, but it was mostly high hit, like move a sandbag for, time under tension until I'm like redlining, which I'm like the rest of the week I wouldn't do.
That's because you're training for a game.
Right.
Like you have to push yourself past that moment each time, like go farther each time. And that's the only way you're going to get better or get stronger through that.
It was like so funny the year before, but that's like, I trained like that 3 or 4 days a week, and it would just ended up not being helpful. And I kind of learned that, kind of giving myself a little time to rest, recover was like necessary, and only
huge.
Being able to redline like when I needed to and not do it all the time was like much more helpful, either for like my heart endurance or for just like pure strength.
Yeah, you're going to break it down and rebuild.
You
got to rebuild. Like, and if you can fully rebuild, then you can fully break it down again, and then kind of get into that. But if it's always broken down, it's never going to operate efficiently the way it is.
Recovery matters so much.
The bigger, I'd say, probably diet is
Sure.
It's huge in that. And that's like when you're saying, I could lift 3 days a week. When I was younger and not see great results, but now, and as you get older, you're lifting 2 days a week maybe, or 3 days a week, but now you're seeing great results. For me, I've noticed it was because what I was eating before was not supplementing what I was doing outside of it. But now, if
What are you saying? Throwing back beers and Marios doesn't cut it until you're 45?
Until the end, right? Yeah, or eating like, cheesesteak hoagies or pizzas when you get back, or a Chinese buffet was my favorite. So like that was never a good thing to go and work out with. But now if you for me, I just eat a bunch of steak. And so when I just eat a bunch of meat, and I'll take creatine. And it's like, wow, I was really not getting enough protein, because within months I was like, shit, I feel 10 times better. Cognitively, I'm better. I look better. I feel better. I feel lighter. I'm like, Jesus, what I went through my first 20 years of working out with, doing it all wrong. Doing it right, but not doing it to what I needed to be.
Yeah.
Because like you said, drinking beers and hammering on buffets and stuff like that.
Because like you're young, like
Cracker Barrel.
You do recover enough that you can get away with it.
Yeah.
But you're so not optimized. I'm like, oh, dude, if I could have gone back for just a little bit and tried like one solid year of like what I do now.
Yeah, Jesus.
Curious
Could
on
you
how
imagine,
good it'd be.
like where you'd be? Like
at like 22.
I came into high school, like
not
first year of
drinking beer.
college, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm just gonna eat like 2 pounds of red meat a day and take creatine and just work out and just be the boss. But priorities change.
Yeah.
No
College
regrets.
soccer like that too. I mean, because you got guys that are 18 to 22 and you're in college, but playing Division I soccer at the highest level in the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those things where, you're still in college. Like, you guys still want to have the college experience. And I think, certain guys could get away with it, but then it's like, well, what could you really do if you didn't have this other element that was just like nagging at you? Like, oh, I still want to have my college experience, whatever. And
The demons.
yeah, I definitely wasn't someone that like went out a lot in college. Like I did. I still had my college experience, don't get me wrong, but I mean, there were other people that did it way more than me, and then we're still up at 6 a.m. ready to run. And I'm like, just imagine how much better that could feel if you weren't.
That was me. Yeah.
Just going out and slamming the beers at Mario's.
Yeah.
I could do that like it was clockwork. Like I could stay up till 3 and wake up at 6 for diving practice and just like crack away like nothing was wrong.
There's no way in hell I could do
Especially
something
spinning
like that
and
now.
flipping.
No, you
It's a
got
little
you
scary.
earned it at that point. You had worked your way up to that. I'm sure there were times where you weren't in that position. You weren't good after doing that. But to get to the point, so it's kind of a feat. It's kind of an accomplishment to get to that.
In like some way too. Like if you can learn to rough it, sometimes it can be not like I'm not advising this, but like sometimes it can be helpful. Like
Dude, that's like what Taylor was saying
Yeah.
on our podcast.
Like,
Like,
go
he's
run on a rough
fighter.
day,
Yeah,
you know?
and he was like, yeah, if I'm hungover going to training, like sometimes that's what I need because I'm like I've got to figure out how to find a good how to train when I feel like this.
Well, there's consequences for your actions.
Yeah.
It's just like raising a kid. Like,
Yeah.
train yourself. Hey, listen, if I do this again, this is how I'm going to feel. Do I want to feel like this ever again? Absolutely not. But you're going to do it
Yeah.
and go through it. So
Yeah, you got to find a way through.
it's kind of a flex, but it's also not exactly a great habit to have.
No.
Like, all right, I'm only going to do this after I have drank a ton the night before. Like,
Yeah,
you're going to
just
feel
challenge your
horrible.
body, right? Push it to the brink and then see how it reacts.
There was like, I think at one point I was like training for some army stuff, and I was kind of in that transition of still being like in college because I was like doing my job training. So I was like 23, and I was like, each time I would go out with my friends, I would make sure I ran the next day, and I would run as many miles as how many drinks I had. And I tell you what, that is not fun. But I definitely was like, you know what, guys, next week let's do 5 drinks or 4
Yeah, let's just
instead
go
of like
socially.
12 because I almost died last Sunday running.
It's 12
Because
years. remember
I
that.
just kept myself
Remember
like
those
accountable. I was like, I'm gonna keep myself accountable. I will run tomorrow. I will have as much fun as I humanly possible, but I will pay for it. And then it kind of adjusted me. I was like, all right, let's go a little light.
That'll eat at you over time. Yeah. Which, but I mean, we haven't talked business yet.
I know, right?
Let's talk about business. I mean, like,
Yeah. So
I don't
like,
know. Where's it start?
All right. I'll tell my little story here. Is basically I went to Pitt. I was in the pharmacy program, and I worked for a CVS over the summer before I transitioned to the core classes. After doing all like my pre-med requisites, and I worked there for 3 months, and I immediately dropped out. As soon as I got back, I'm like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't be in this area. I couldn't just count these pills. I'm like, and I was only in it for the money. You know, you're 18 years old. I'm like, what do you want to do? I want to make $100,000. You know, pharmacists make that. I'm like, oh, that's great. I don't have to do a lot of work. I just count pills. This sounds like a great way to end my life, basically, when you get older. And so then I quit after that, and I had a buddy that was at Pitt Exercise Science, and he's like, oh man, I'm going to be a chiropractor. I'm like, I have no idea what that even is. And then so I kind of looked into it. And I'm like, oh, that's great. And so I did my exercise science, and I'm like, oh, what do I want to be? So that wasn't like my end thing. I was like, I got to do something. This is a stepping stone. So I was like, do I want to be a doctor of some sort? Yeah, I want to be in charge. I don't really like people telling me what to do. Do I want to be a physical therapist? Well, I do want to do exercise. I think movement in the body. I always believe that it heals itself. I've never been one to take medications or anything like that. My mom worked in the medical field when we were young, growing up. We were poor, and the doctor there was always telling my mom, "Don't do any of this stuff that we're doing. Like don't give them all these medicines. Don't get all these checks. Don't." It was all a game. And so he ended up stopped being a medical doctor, and he started doing like acupuncture and holistic stuff because he just couldn't live with himself because they were not fixing anybody. He's like, this is not fixing anything for these people. He's like, we're just covering this up. He's like, we're just a constant stream of giving them some sort of medication, lining them up, doing tests on them. Anyway, so I had to do an internship, and I did it at a chiropractor's office, and he did physical therapy. And I'm like, oh shit, I can do chiropractic and physical therapy together. But the main factor was like, it was hard. The chiropractor that I did the internship with told me, he's like, the PTs can't really start their own businesses because they have to have referrals. And this was back in early 2000s. I don't even know if they had direct access, which is like 30 days now you can see a PT. But before, you had to have a referral. And he's like, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you can't be a physical therapist because you're going to have a hard time getting patients. You have to have somebody else referring them to you. And that's very difficult. And he's like, as a chiropractor, you can do physical therapy, and you can see anybody off the street because you're a doctor. So you're like the primary care for whenever they come in. You're the first person that they see. You don't have to take orders from anybody.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that sounds great. He's like, but you don't want to be a chiropractor if you want to work for somebody because we're not going to pay you anything. And I'm like, that makes sense too. But like the physical therapy, you can make money working for like UPMC or Allegheny Health Network. So if you wanted to work for somebody, you went and be a physical therapist. If you wanted to be an entrepreneur, you'd be a chiropractor. And the freedom of doing what you wanted was always the allure to me. So they're not listening to people. I guess it's like a bad. And unfortunately, I've transferred that to my daughter right now. She's not very good in school. Like not listening and formulating your own opinions. And because when it comes to business, like when I ran mine, if you're doing what somebody else is telling you to do, you're never going to do it as good as they were doing it. So you can hire these consultants, you can hire these firms or these people to tell you how to run it. And just like that first PT clinic, right? They probably had is a business. They had sheets, they had issues, and then you had to do these exercises in this order. It was ran as a business, right? And it's probably a good business. They probably have multiple locations, and then they have multiple physical therapists. I'm sorry, where was I at on that? Just talking about a business. Starting mine.
Yes.
And so I went to, I ended up deciding I'm going to be a chiropractor because I didn't want to be a DO because the DOs that I shadowed, they said they were just MDs. They said, you're just going to push medicine anyway. You're going to push pills. You're going to work at a hospital. I'm like, all right, so I'm not going to be a DO. I went to the PTs. They were just rubbing butts, doing a lot of geriatric stuff. And I mean, to each their own, but that's not what I really wanted to do. I wanted to do work with younger people, athletes, movement, stuff like that. And the PTs that I shadowed were doing the same, putting people on stim. They're like hand bikes and foot bikes and like running around with a car doing some banded exercise. I'm like, this sucks as well. But the chiro part of it is people were happy. When I went to the chiropractic and worked in the chiropractic office, like people left in pain and they left smiling or happy, or like they wanted to generally always come, because I don't know whether it made it feel good to get adjusted, and then he would do some rehab and some massage. I think he did some supplementation too, but for the most part, I had a tremendous better experience going from the chiropractor than I did from the job shadowing the PTs. And so I applied to the chiropractic school in Florida, and after I graduated Pitt in April, I started in July, and then I went through school there, and that was wild. And then so like the chiropractic school is just crazy. They teach you some straight banana stuff, and it's very difficult to get through. Not for the material's hard. The anatomy doesn't change. You learn that in everything. So, but to get through is to wrap your head around some of the things that places teach you about history, and like you're like, don't worry about it. And my chiro said, he said, just don't pay attention to school. He's like, get through school, get out. He's like, and then you're just gonna do your own thing anyway. And I'm like, oh shit, that's easier said than done. But to just go through it, and then people are starting to tell you, I mean, there's just like a lot of weird people out there when it comes to the chiropractic world. And as you probably know, like if you see them on Instagram, you'll see them doing tamer techniques, or they have with a ring dinger, like where the dude straps you in and just yanks on these people's heads, and you're just like, holy cow, like, is that good? Is that
That has to
bad?
be, I think I've asked this before, but like school for this must be absolutely wild. Like,
It's wild.
I wouldn't
there's
want to
some
be like
techniques where it's just like,
like-
fundamentally you're like, you got to be kidding me. Like, and you have to
and
learn
then
it.
trying it.
Yeah,
like trying it on your
trying
bike.
it was fun. That was actually like line them up, right? Like, you got a bunch of stiff necks, like a lot of issues.
Jesus.
But we would just have parties, adjusting parties. Like you would just come and you'd bring a case of beer, and then we would just fucking line each other up. We'd learn a move, and we'd be like, all right, let's do it. Let's try it. How do we do it? And the hard part it's not about strength it's about speed. So confidence is key. So when you go to a chiropractor and they're like, don't seem confident, I would not let them touch you at all, because they're going to be slow. But the quicker and confident you are, the thing, you can move things. Just like you were squatting and you felt some slip, right? You moved quicker than the muscles were able to react to it. And then, that just happened to be in the wrong position due to like a force that was weight that you were holding. But it's the same thing when you're cracking the knuckles or anything like that. You're just moving that joint, and the muscles either just relax, or like if you're doing it in a spot where it's really tight, you've got to get them to inhibit or relax by diverting attention somewhere or doing massage techniques before it. Anyway, and I get off on tangents. Anyway, so I graduated chiropractic school. I worked for a guy down in Florida. We actually started, it was like one of those corrective care clinics is what they would say. Basically, he was trying to get me to sell people like 24 visit or 36 visit packages. And I was like, no way, I'm not doing this. This is ridiculous. How can I look somebody straight in the eye and say, this is going to take you 4 months? Yeah. I'm like, what? I'm like, no, let's just take 2 weeks. I'm like, let's just try a couple weeks at a time, make sure they're getting better, or they're seeing some sort of progress, or some objectively that is going to work. But no, there was all numbers. It was like, if you see somebody 24 times, you only have to see half as many new patients as if you were seeing somebody 12. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But like, what at what expense, at what outcome? Like sleeping at night, like like trying to sell somebody, look at somebody in the eye, and it's going to cost you $5,000 over the next 4 months to come see me. And I'm just like,
just business centric.
It's just all about money. And that's when you work for somebody else. But like when you're doing your own thing, you create the scenario. And I found it if you do give the people what they want. Some people want that. Some people want you to see them all the time. Okay, fine. I'm only going to teach you so much. And then at some point in time, I'm going to talk to you and say, hey, you're not going to get any more. I can adjust you. I can rub you down, do things like that, make you feel good. But you're not going to learn much more from me unless you have a different condition.
Yeah.
But back to the business thing. So I worked for a guy in Florida who started this medical clinic then. So after the chiropractic care, I'm like, I don't want to do it. He said, okay, let's hire a medical doctor and let's start doing this medical integration. And I'm like, well, this sounds nice. Okay. I've always wanted to be in the, work with collaborating with other physicians. And that ended up turning into just another business thing. Whereas you were handing out these durable medical equipment and they were doing these injections while I was running rehab and adjusting. And so it was increasing the case visit from $3,000 to $13,000 for people. And then he was selling diabetes supplementations and hyperthyroidism and Hashimoto's disease. And he was getting in these, but he was it was going in the wrong direction that I wanted to, right? Mm-hmm. And so after we installed this medical clinic and it was running and I was running basically the whole thing, I was telling the nurse practitioner or the medical doctor what to do as a quarterback. And then I was my first year came up and he's like, oh, I'm going to give you a couple more grand. I'm like, no, I want $1 million. And he just looked at me and he's like, dude, you're never going to get that. I'm like, I know. He's like, I'm not going to offer you any more after this either because you're going to have to work on your own. He's like, you're not the type of person. He's like, I don't need a star. I need a grunt. Yeah. He's like, you're a star. You're never going to be happy working for anybody. You got to do your own thing. And so then after that, I was like, all right, I'll put in my couple months and then I'll kind of just hang out and see what I'm going to do. I ended up putting out some ads and stuff like that. I get a headhunter. And then somebody from the Allegheny Health Network headhunted me down to Florida and wanted me to come back to Pittsburgh because they knew that's where I was from. And so I ran 3 or 4 physical medicine offices. And there was one in Brackenridge, there was one in Gibsonia, there was one in Monroeville. And I was doing the same thing that I was doing in Florida. That's how they headhunted me. That same consulting company that helped us start the Florida practice were the ones that hooked me up with this other gentleman because they knew that I had not worked anymore for this guy in Florida and that I was a viable person to help run somebody else that already had 3 or 4 of these going around my area in Pittsburgh. So hired me to that. Somebody's going to pay me XYZ money. I got up here and I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm going to kill it with this contract that this guy made me sign. And then I told him about the contract at the first pay. I'm like, this isn't right. And he's like, oh shoot. He's like, the contract meant this. I'm like, no, it says this. He's like, but it meant this. I'm like, but it says this. Yeah, what do you mean? Right? I'm like, he's like, oh, he's like, I can't afford to pay you what it says here. I'm like, well, that's what it says. Yeah. And I'm like, oh shit. People, so at that point in time, I'm like, all right, I'm out. This isn't gonna happen. And that's when I was doing CrossFit, and then it got, I did a couple more months there, always looking to maybe start my own. I started doing some CrossFit. I actually lived next to a CrossFit gym, and it was like, join them or not, because I could hear them at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was literally right next to it. They were dropping Atlas stones on the ground at 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'd be like, dun, dun, dun. And I'm like, fuck it, dude, let's just go next door and let's start doing this CrossFit. And so that's when I got into it, and I was like, oh, this is great. And they were like, what do you do? I'm a chiropractor. Oh, fix this, fix this, fix this, Boom. Fix it. But I'm like, Jesus, I don't have the time in the day to do this on the weekends. So I started seeing some people on the weekends just to help them out. And then it was a point in time I'm like, all right, I have enough people that I could get started. Yeah. And so then I just took out a small loan for, I don't know, it was $50,000, bought some equipment, built out a place, and I started from scratch. And then just did guerrilla marketing. I would go to schools, I'd go to health fairs. I would do trade shows, anything. David Lawrence. I would try to do anything, get my mind or get my brand out there, basically. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it was just generating referrals, because it was hard because I was always on this short-term care. I was like, I'm not gonna make people come here forever. I don't want to. I just don't think it's right. I want to teach people what to do. And it turned out it worked out pretty well. Seeing people 2 weeks, 4 weeks at a time. They wanted to come more, but they were more inclined to tell other people. And so then word of mouth spread, just virally. And I would never have to advertise. Mm-hmm. It's because people would I was never making people unhappy. I was like, how can I make things right?
Yeah.
You know, or what are you looking for? Tailoring it to that specific purpose. And it was based upon what I wanted though. So my passion was there 100%. Like I was working 10 hours a day, but it wasn't work. It was like raising a kid. Like it starts and it's like crying and wah, you don't have no money. Like you don't make money for 6 months. And then like right after that, and the next thing you know, you're looking at your bank start going sky high because you're just paying off all your debts or everything is profit after that. And then you just start hiring people to delegate. The harder part is like letting go. And that's the hard part. And I've done it, and I'm starting to let go more of things to do, but it always bites you. The snake will bite you in the end. It can let you know that, you know, you still got to be on top of it. But, and so that's what I did. I started on my own doing just me. Then I hired a guy to help me out with doing some of the passive modalities that I did. I hired a front desk girl to just help me with some of the marketing, getting things set up, answering phone calls. I was doing all the insurance. I was doing all the treating. And then I never had to advertise.
Wow.
But I put in like 6 months of hard work. And then since then it was like, okay, I'm seeing enough people. I just never did the advertising thing. I never really had to because it was just word of mouth. And people would word of mouth. And it's just a constant funnel.
Yeah.
And so making people happy, finding out what people want, and then providing a solution to their problem, but not like, I don't know. It's difficult to do, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's really just.
Yeah, I mean, like framing it in, it's all in their best interests.
Correct. It's the thing about the person, not your wallet. Never about how much money is it. How much what am I going to get from that? It's always, what can I do for you?
Yeah.
And that's how I would always approach those guerrilla marketing things is this is what I'm going to do for you. Well, what's in it for you? I'm like, I don't know. And so, as far as like business aspect, I would say just, my biggest advice is to do what you do. And every chiropractor is different. And that's why I tell people when you go to a chiropractor, I always ask, what's your experience like? What did they do? Or what didn't they do for you?
Yeah.
Did they put you on stem? Did they put you on like a roller table? Did they adjust you? And then were you like a conveyor belt and you're in and out? Or do they spend time? Do they do some sort of exercise with you that's not one of the same 4 or 5 that everybody does? And so the experience and the comforting of your office as well too. Like my office, I consider it pretty chill. Listen to good music. We got a dog that runs around there now. I told her don't bring it, and then now it's been here ever since I said that. And so people were comfortable. If you have those white walls and lab coats, and you walk into that, nobody's comfortable there.
Yeah.
No, it's like, what are you going to do to me? What are you trying to do to me?
Right.
Yeah.
I want you to be comfortable whenever you're doing it. Listen to good music, smiling. I want people to be happy.
Yeah.
As long as you make people happy, everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah.
You piss people off, your business is going to go nowhere, dude.
Yeah, it's just,
the hardest thing is gathering, and people struggle with getting new patients all the time. You have to keep a lot of new patients coming in, but you can't do that unless you have a good business.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the referral place that's the best place to be in. I mean, when you've got the majority of your clients coming from referrals. I mean, I'm a personal trainer myself, and completely self-employed. I have one employee that's like quarter time, and it's my sister. And like you're talking about delegating, and I'm like, even that's hard. I mean, she knows me, knows what I do, but it's still like just that letting go is super difficult.
Yeah.
But same thing. Like I found the clients that I get from referrals are often the best people.
They are.
I mean, someone coming in from that doesn't know me, like they have to know me because I mean I'm the one that's going to be working with them directly. And so when they already have an idea of who you are and what you do, I mean it makes it seamless.
Yeah, and personal trainers, that's one of the bigger picks I went to for when it came to starting out. I would see these personal trainers for free. I would see, because I would tell them, like, you're one of your biggest barriers to keeping your clients is them getting injured.
Right.
And they either tell you or they don't. A lot of times they don't even tell you. They're just like, I don't want to do this anymore because it's not comfortable because they're in pain. And a lot of times there's objections like money and time, and things like, but you can work through that. Those are all objections. People shoot to objections right away. But if you can fire down those objections with solutions to their problems, then you're gonna give them no reason to say no.
Yeah.
It gets with personal training though. Like I would see people for free because I would show them, hey, this is what I can do to your people that are not coming, or maybe they're injured. Maybe I can help them out. If I can keep them healthy, then they're going to be able to stay with you longer.
Right.
And then the personal trainers are most of them are working out, right? And most of the ones you want to work with are going to look the part of what you do. Like, they don't. That's why people don't listen to medical doctors a lot. It's like,
They don't
tell
look
me
the
about
part.
health. Like,
Yeah.
you tell me about health.
Yeah.
Like, really, what part of this am I supposed to believe? Like, the
Absolutely.
science. Like, what do you mean the science? I'm looking at you, and it doesn't look very scientific.
Yeah.
Like, and so that's the same thing with personal training. Is big. Like, that's huge. Like, you literally need to look like you care about yourself. And same thing in my profession. I mean, I was overweight at one point in time over the pandemic, but I mean, you got to be in somewhat of a shape. When you do, you feel better, you look better, people believe you, because you have the receipts to prove it.
Yeah.
And that's, you practice what you preach.
Yeah, 100%.
Where can people find you and your business?
We are in Shadyside, East Liberty area, 5916 Penn Avenue. It's Pittsburgh Physical Medicine, physical therapy, chiropractic, massage therapy. We actually have physical therapists, chiropractors, massage therapists that come to it. We take all of major medical insurance. We're in net with UPMC, Highmark, Aetna, United. We are not in with Cigna, unfortunately. It is what it is, but my value is a little bit higher than what they're willing to give people, so I'm not going to be disrespected. Anyway, we have good affordable cash prices as well too. The massage can be medical, but most of the time it's a separate cash service. When it comes, that's a big question people ask. We'll be having more opening up soon as we have been growing the last couple of years because I've been letting go, right? I actually have kids now, and now time is of my essence. So I'm selling time. So I'm giving it to other people that I can get more time with the kids.
Well, and that's a great spot to be in. I mean, that's such a good position to have worked hard into, and then now you're seeing the payoff. And when you want that flexibility, it's like you're cashing
I'm ready
it in.
now, and I don't have to worry.
You're cashing it in.
And that's, like I said, and it's worked out. I hired 2 really good guys. And like I said, I can't say, like, physical therapy, if you're doing physical therapy somewhere and you have any doubts about what's going on, try my physical therapist. I'm pretty sure you'll be shocked. His exam's thorough. I yell at him all the time because he's just taking too much time as a business owner. You're just like, come on, dude, you gotta make this. How can you see more people? Not less. But it's like, you know what? You have a comfort level of this. I'm not going to break those boundaries. We all work together. Well, he knows how many people he's going to see. He wants to keep it short and sweet like that, and I respect that. And so we'll always keep that one-on-one type personality. You're always going to be with somebody when it comes in, and that's just going to keep the referrals going. And then, the less stress, the happier I am. The less you have to stress about what is it going to be next week. Because I've had times where I'm like, oh shit, like we saw like only 6 or 7 new patients this week. Like we need like 14 of them a week to maintain where we want to be. Like when it was going to happen, the numbers start to drop down, but each and every time they just picks right back up. And I just never really, I don't know, it's a mentality. I think I'm always forecasting, like, this is what's going to happen. Setting, like, this next month, we're going to be huge. Like, things are growing. Let's get excited, guys. Like, let's get ready. Let's work on things. And every downtime has always been a reason why I've had downtime. And I've never, I always try to find it. Like, if we're down for a reason, I'm like, oh shit, I got to get caught up on the insurance billing. So let's go through and spend just a day when we're down and just clean up our books. Let's chase money that we haven't been paid before. And it'll be just enough time. And then once we finish that, we'll see like 25 new patients the next week, and it will be just booked and jammed. And it's like, then we get behind on some things, and it's like things go downhill. But I'm like, this is a perfect time. Let's get caught up. Let's train. Let's implement something new into it. You just got to evolve with your business as well too.
Yeah.
Well, I think you've done a really good job at that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I mean, I've like referred your place a ton since I've been going, because it was one of the few places that I'm like, I guarantee if you have anything outside of something that's quite unsolvable,
yes,
that you're a really good starting point to like show
we'll
up,
tell you where to go,
and just try to pitch it. Say, hey, here's where I'm at. Here's the things I'm lacking, because it hasn't fallen short. I've always been there and seen people that are in the same spot as me, so it's been really good.
I appreciate it. Yeah. We try.
Fantastic.
We're never going to lose that. That's, even if I'm not the doctor you see, I've instilled that in any of the doctor that works for me. They're basically doing their own thing. I just guide them. So they're going to do what they want to do when it comes to it, but they all align in the same values that I do. I vetted them very hard, months and months to either one of the people that I hired. And so I think it's important. Staff is the most important part. Turnover is the worst thing that you'll ever have.
Yeah.
My rehab guy's been with me since I started. Catherine, massage therapist, has been with me since I started. The only position that revolves every once in a while is the front desk, and either moved away or it's just a difficult position. But try to give people golden handcuffs. I guess that's my new route. Think I'm not looking.
Well, again, appreciate you being on with us. And I know that this is your first podcast, so this was like a home run for you. I think it went super well. So
Absolutely.
Many more to talk about. I have another business too. I make tables.
hell yeah,
stuff like that.
Well, then we'll have you on for next season for
There we
sure.
go.
For sure. Thank you for everyone that was listening. Hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. And we will be having podcasts out in the new studio. So if I'm spamming you guys a lot, check out where you can subscribe and at least put out a review for us here or there, wherever you are watching this at. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you all next time.